This week saw the publication of a long-awaited study into upgrading the national grid in this region. We've talked about it before, I know, but judging from all of your emails, it's something that you feel very strongly about. So here is the problem. We've got lots of new energy being produced by our offshore wind farms, but how do we get it from there down to London and the southeast? Well, there are various plans which involve several new substations, more than 100 miles of pylons between Norwich and Tilbury, perhaps another set of pylons from the Suffolk coast into Essex. And then there's the Lion Link proposal to carry energy from the Netherlands, which will come ashore near Southwold. With so much opposition to those plans, though, MPs asked for an assessment of all the different options. This week's report concludes that the quickest and cheapest solution is to put all the cabling on land. The most expensive is to keep it out at sea. Now, there could be a hybrid option with just some cabling at sea, and that could do away with the need for some pylons and a substation in Essex. But look, whatever option is chosen, it does seem as if part of the Suffolk coast will be in line for major redevelopment. All the options see cabling coming ashore near Southwold and a massive substation being built near the village of Friston.
Well, I'm concerned that this beautiful part of Suffolk, which is important for tourism, is important for farming and food security, those sorts of things are being threatened. Now, I'm conscious we've had a nuclear site for some time, we've had a nuclear site for decades. I'm not deaf to the concerns that people have raised about that. But this, in my view, is completely unnecessary infrastructure in this part of Suffolk coastal when it could go absolutely as readily elsewhere.
I've been out personally to those places and listened to communities and seen how they would be affected. And obviously, that isn't something that anybody wants to see, but equally there are these really difficult trade-offs that need to be balanced with each other.
Let's speak with Fiona Gilmore from the campaign group Suffolk Energy Action Solutions. Look, you've been fighting this campaign, I know, Fiona, for a long time now, but is anyone listening? It doesn't seem like they're listening.
We don't believe that National Grid is listening, but we do believe that Ofgem is starting to listen, because just on the 1st of March, a new publication from Ofgem called Offshore Hybrid Assets says that it would be cheaper for the consumer if we adopted offshore hybrid assets, and that means using pooling of energy from wind farms at offshore platforms and taking it to brownfield sites. You would reduce your onshore infrastructure, your footprint, by at least 50%.
Okay.
You would still need your hubs, but we can use existing brownfield sites such as Grain, and also potentially another site closer to London that's being explored by the new studies.
So you haven't lost hope for your campaign, but we heard very clearly from the report author and the report's conclusions this week that, look, whatever happens, communities are going to be upset. This is something that we have to take control of if we're going to meet our net zero targets. And, there is always the accusation that, wherever this happens, there are going to be people that don't want it near them.
The study published this week, the East Anglia Network study by ESO, is flawed, is too narrow in scope, and it is not looking at the socio-economic impacts properly. The tourism impact, if this all goes to Friston, 3 miles from Aldeburgh, using Southwold or Walberswick as another landfall site, the socio-economic impact, we will lose £1 billion over 12 to 15 years of construction, because people will no longer want to come to this area.
Okay.
And we have 60 million day visits in a year that are at risk.
You have made your point very clearly, Fiona. Thank you very much. It's good to catch up with you on that. Spoken to Fiona on many occasions, know that part of the coast well. What would Labour do? I mean, would you say, let's tear up these plans, go back to the drawing board and do something that would keep Fiona and other communities more happy?
The principle here has to be that we need to be able to deal with the increase in electricity that's going to be generated in the grid, especially renewables. That's the primary concern here. But where we can do that in a way which is compatible with preserving people's livelihoods and agriculture agriculture and the way that things look is really important. Now, I took it upon myself to have a look that since 2011, National Grid, a private company, has made about £120 billion in profits, £4.5 billion last year. I think they can afford to invest a little bit more to go for the costlier option and put it offshore. I personally think that if you're going to do this, do it properly and don't cut corners. You've made a lot of money out of us, the public, over the last 20 years.
In the end, we would end up paying for that, wouldn't we?
Well, not necessarily, because that has to go in anyway. And I personally would like to see a system where maybe they're taking a little bit less profit out than the hundreds of billions they've taken out since 1990, and we can invest that in the infrastructure. Okay. I don't think that's a big ask.
Well, Louise from Essex, I mean, where are you on this? And that line of pylons would go right through where you are.
I mean, it's very interesting to hear this because, of course, Rachel Reeves has come out recently and has actually said we need to get on with this, and she would see the pylons go across from Norfolk down to Essex.
She's in disagreement with the county group, myself, and others. So I think it should be done, but I think we can have it done offshore.
But you are saying get on with it, and sorry, Fiona, and communities
no, I'm certainly not saying that.
What are you saying?
Rachel Reeves is saying that needs to get on with it. So there's a clear mismatch between the government and what the local
do you stand then?
Labour representatives are saying. So we want to see an integrated offshore option. We cannot consider this just from the energy perspective. I know we all want to have energy security, and that much is paramount and is clear. But it cannot be and should not be at the expense of some of the most beautiful parts of our country.
Okay, Marie, do you agree? I mean, no plan is going to please anyone. Well, I suppose the offshore undersea cabling might do, but there is a cost that's associated with that.
There is, and there's a cost associated with not planning and not having proper foresight as well. I mean, the arguments have been made, one way or the other for the various options there, and I think it's just really disappointing that we're in this position at all. We as Liberal Democrats argued as much as a decade ago for an offshore grid, which would mean that it would be much easier to bring stuff onshore because you wouldn't have to have loads and loads of different connection points. And that's what we're really facing now, is that failure to plan from government, a decade or so ago, and, certainly a failure from this Conservative government. What we'd like to see as Liberal Democrats is in much more investment in locally generated energy, so community energy, allowing local communities to generate their own electricity, their own power, and to benefit from that, and bring it and generate it closer to where it's absolutely needed. Investment in insulation for homes and investment on things like solar panels.
I want Louise to answer that accusation there. This is all down to a lack of planning that we're in this mess.
I think what this is about is that transition. And there is also a piece here around looking at the timing, and a report that we commissioned alongside Norfolk and Suffolk County Councils did question the timing around some of this. And I say that not just to push the can down the road, but in actual fact it would give us the opportunity to look at some new technology that is coming online, which would be deliverable and cheaper.
Very, very briefly.
Very quickly, if you want to have a just transition, and that means not simply putting a pylon over people's kind of countryside, and keeping people's livelihoods, then that means that those who have the most are going to have to pay the most. And National Grid has plenty.